our meeting to order tonight. Renata, if you could do the roll call, please.
Gookin,
Here?
Miller. Here. English.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Ittinger.
Here.
McEvers.
Okay, if we would rise for the invocation, we have Mike that's here from Ignite the World Ministries.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for having me here tonight. It's a joy to be here, especially this time of year. Let's pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. So much to be blessed about families and living in such a beautiful place, northern Idaho. And we reflect now also on a special time for many of us of faith as we reflect about a life that was born and hope given not only to a nation 2,000 years ago, but to us as well today. And so we're grateful for that. We're also grateful for, as we look forward to a new year, and with much promise, personally and also for our city. And I pray that you would give the mayor and the city council much insight and wisdom as they govern our city and provide opportunity for all citizens to have just the best of life here in this just very beautiful city with all the wonderful amenities that are provided. So we thank you and we praise you, Lord God, and we thank you for so many blessings this time of year and in 2018. Amen.
Dan, if you could lead us in the pledge, please. Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I don't believe we have any amendments to the agenda tonight. And this is officially the last time that we will have the opportunity to have Jim Hammond's cell phone go off during a council meeting. Oh, you did?
What he said last
So, so Jim is headed to retirement, and we just want to thank you again. We had a great gathering of a lot of your friends the other day, and wanted to thank you, Jim, for the service you've given to the city of Coeur d'Alene and the leadership. And again, we've got a seat for you, and the coffee's always on for you to come over to City Hall to visit. So we wish you and Cindy all the best in retirement.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. So now we have, I guess we get real official here, and now we have the oath of office for our new city administrator, Troy Tymason, and Renata will do that.
All right. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Troy Tymason,
I, Troy Tymason,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the laws of the state of Idaho
and the laws of the state of Idaho
and the ordinances of the city of Coeur d'Alene,
and the ordinances of the city of Coeur d'Alene,
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
all of the duties
all of the duties
of the office of city administrator
of the office of city administrator
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
so help you God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I need a little bit of business. Sign your name twice, please.
Troy, do you have a prepared speech?
But I bet he can say something.
Yeah.
I would like to come forward and thank you very much, Mayor and council members, for having the trust in the relationship that you have with your incoming administrator. I'd like to thank Mr. Hammond for the ground that he's plowed, the things that he's been able to get started and accomplish, and we'll do our best to carry on. I'm excited to be a member of this great team at the city of Coeur d'Alene and look forward to more interaction with our constituents as I take on a new role. So I'd just like to say thank you and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Troy. We're all looking forward to a great 2018. So we will move on to business now. We have the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as presented, including resolution number 17-073.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent calendar? Dan?
Yes, I have a question on the minutes for our joint meeting with Ignite. And it might be kind of a picky thing, but it lists the Ignite board members present, and it doesn't list you or I, the mayor or I, and I realize we're listed under the city council, but I just, in, I guess, accuracy and transparency that we are there in dual roles, I guess, or maybe clarification, should that be listed?
Well, Renata, I will ask that question of you.
It can be done either way. It's just reflecting that you were present was part of the city council portion, but we can certainly add you to Ignite as well and just show that you have those dual roles. That's something I can edit.
Seems appropriate to me, but,
Okay, yeah, Renata, so Renata, you can make that adjustment. All right.
okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers, Gookin,
Yes.
English,
Yes,
Eddinger,
Yep.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried. Now is the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the city on city business shall have 3 minutes to do so. Anyone interested in public comment tonight? Chet is always interested in public comment.
That's not me, that's that other guy. So I have come up here to talk about the Spokane River Corridor, and I want to thank you all and to thank staff for a very good year in 2017. I think you all have been very receptive to public input, and I think the project has evolved, in my opinion, very nicely, and I wanted to come up and thank you this last meeting of this year. Wish you a Merry Christmas and hope for a productive 2018. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
Anyone else wishing to give public comments tonight?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Dennis Heinrichsen, live at 949 East Spruce Avenue, Coeur d'Alene. I am the Neighborhood Watch for Spruce Avenue Neighborhood Watch. I have emailed you, I have engaged you multiple times before this mic. I organized Spruce Avenue Neighborhood Watch in hopes of providing peace and preserving our neighborhood character. Unfortunately, this city does not have a resolve to enforce its ordinances or to preserve neighborhood character or peace or preserve people's safety. Retaliation is a reality to any citizen wishing to live in peace under the rule of law. And that's where I am as a Neighborhood Watch commander. Unfortunately, I'm not recognized anymore as such. Our companion huskies have, over the years, we've had 4 of them now since we moved here in '98, have each been attacked without proper, appropriate response from CDA police and animal control. In April of 2015, even Lieutenant Brainerd was unable to issue a citation for a vicious animal at large. That was an animal that bit my wife, Teresa, as well as nailed my Kona, our 4th husky, nailed him in the tail and pierced through, and we thought he might lose his tail. There is retaliation regardless of what Christy Wood would like to say or what whoever would like to say. Consequence of gentrification, which I have opposed here, and which you rubber stamp. On November 10th this year at 6:22 in the a.m., my wife Teresa became a casualty. I am a consequence of that retaliation, even as I face trial for trying to communicate with neighbors that are less than willing to live under the rule of law. Teresa and I had been subjected to malicious harassment since December 20th of 2016. I had to chuckle when you gave testimony during the during the housing, the Airbnb. Because really, Tom Torgerson has it right. Any kind of conclusion you reach as far as ordinances, it's not going to be enforceable. And that's the case with us. There's no appeal to this. If you will not take this kind of thing, this kind of loss, will not consider it, then there's no hope for anyone living under the burden of your densification and gentrification. You can laugh about it, but people lose their lives, all the while you give credence to criminals that you release into our neighborhoods, felons, and they have the support of the police department. And I don't understand that. I don't understand how two officers can come out and not one report be taken, yet the following day I'm set up for presumable assault because I was trying to explain to a young female that our neighborhood is a 25-mile-an-hour zone and I wasn't doing 40. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I do. Dennis, are you referring to transitional housing in your neighborhood?
I'm talking about criminals that come in, do what they want, do not even put up a fence after they attack another dog. They do not restrain their dogs. And now Mark Johnson, the gentleman, we were at his garage, 932, I believe, East Spruce. He lost his dog. His granddaughter lost her dog. Jamie lost her
This
dog.
is that one house that you showed me that's kind of north of you that, where the dogs get out.
Yeah, and I had even reported that, hoping that it would provoke the police to do something and start enforcing the laws. But I can't even get Lieutenant Brainerd to issue a citation and charge, and the guy that's involved right now maliciously harassing me, engaging other neighbors as well, he still doesn't have the fence that was mandated September 23rd when his dog killed a young little purse puppy.
And this is 9th and Spruce?
Yes.
All right.
Rather, the Coeur d'Alene police preferred to issue charges against me, delayed those charges so long that one neighbor moved. Loretta Park has moved. She was there that day. She's gone. She didn't want to tolerate it anymore. The police did not even look across the street and say, wow, maybe we should canvass those people. They're having a yard sale as well, moving sale actually, and see if they saw anything. They didn't do that. They looked at 3 witnesses, took their testimony, and there is no defense against what I'm charged, and anyone that wishes to be a neighborhood watch commander or try to organize their neighborhood, I would say don't do it. Move instead. And that's what Bonnie Martinelli encouraged me to do. Get out of that neighborhood. Unfortunately, it's impossible right now, as many of us seniors are strapped on disability and meager incomes. We can't just pick up and move to where the police would honor an HOA because they don't have to even lift a finger.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Anyone else wishing to give public comment? Okay, we will move on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement? Dan?
I have plenty, thank you. So, okay, first of all, I would like to introduce a new member of the Cable Commission. His name is Joe Morrison, and Joe is currently in the control booth helping to switch tonight's city council meeting. Is he, okay, he's waving at us. So virtually, if you're watching online, or Joe's in there. Joe is also the son of our battalion chief, John Morrison, who is in the audience today, which means nothing's burning, so we're cool. So that's another announcement I guess we can have. Also, at the KMPO meeting this past week, I was there, and there was some discussion about, the transit center will be next, but also, we had discussed, or ITD has discussed something called a Regional Traffic Management Center. They're looking for funding for this. They're thinking about starting this up. And what it would be a centralized location in the county that would help deal with various intersections. So they would monitor them using the cameras above the intersection, and they would be able to real-time respond to traffic congestion, as opposed to now, which how it works is the lights are either triggered by when your car comes up or not, or sometimes they're on timers. But this would allow an intersection like 95 in Ironwood or Saltese and Northwest Boulevard to be monitored real time, so that if you've ever been through one of those intersections or not, and realize that what's going on, why isn't the light changing, or how come it's backing up, here and over there there's no one, but they have a green light. This traffic management center would help solve those problems, because you'd have a real set of eyes looking at these things. So I think that's a great idea. I look forward to seeing the funding coming in for that, and I think anyone who's ever been stuck in traffic realizes that it's something that we need. There were interesting traffic statistics in the area and how the traffic has grown. I mean, on I-90 and 95, it's almost triple what it was 5 years ago. So we're definitely moving in that direction. Also on 95 in Ironwood, I did speak to Stephen James, who's with JUB. And if you've gone on Ironwood across 95, you've probably noticed that the lanes don't line up. And so I mentioned them to that. I said, these are the things I noticed. That is something that will be addressed in the future. So if you're on there now and you're having an issue, or you notice that all of a sudden the lane's jogging, and it's like, well, that's kind of weird, that will be fixed. Apparently there's something that's supposed to happen down the road. And I think that's all my announcements for tonight.
Thank you, Dan. Any other member of the council have an announcement? Okay, if not, I have an appointment. This is for the International Board of Appeals. And Renata, this must be a necessary board that we keep, but we rarely use. I know we haven't used it in the time that I've been here. Do we know when the last time this board was even used?
I would say it's probably been about 20 years, but it is required under the state code to have such a board.
Okay. So I would wish to appoint Richard Colburn, Tom Messina, Scott Razor, Steve James, Chris Pereira, and Justin Miller to the International Board of Appeals. So I'd be looking for council action.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Now on to other business. We have now the discussion of the transit center. And Dan, you were involved in the first meeting there, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on the 13th of this month, I got together with a bunch of people who have a vested interest in the transit system, and we discussed the transit center. Specifically, the council has expressed a desire in the past to make sure that passengers who are waiting for the bus at the transit center would be out of the weather. And we had discussed having the building so that it would have some kind of lobby and bathrooms. And those were the key points that I wanted to express in the meeting. The meeting went really well, and the engineers and the architects were very responsive to all the input. And it was a very positive thing. And I did have to leave a little bit early, so I missed some of the discussions. But what I wanted to find out from council tonight is to get input moving forward on your direction to see whether you are like hard-coded into saying, no, we have to have a lobby within the building, or if there's an alternative, which is, and I will show these pictures for those viewing at home. So this is a picture of what a covered transit, like a waiting area looks like. So it's glass enclosed on all four sides, and the one that I just showed you and the one that's in the council packet is a little smaller than the ones they're talking about building, something that would be 10 feet wide, about 20 feet deep. It would have a kind of a maze-like thing to get in, so you'd go left and then right to get in, so it's not open to the weather. It would be heated. So during the cold weather, this thing would not only be covered and shielded from the wind, but it would be heated. It's also going to be, the glass does not go all the way to the ground. The glass raises up a little bit, which allows airflow through, but also prevents people from camping in there. And that was one of the concerns of the county, was that they didn't want this to be a place where someone would camp. So I just want to find out if council is okay with that type of thing, to have a covered, heated shelter that would be able to get out of the element. It's not the same as being in the lobby of the building. So the building would still have bathrooms in there, and the public could use the bathrooms while the building is occupied. And if that's okay with you guys too, then we can move forward with that. But those are the questions I wanted to find out from council. If you guys are okay with the covered heated shelters, if that's good enough, or if you really insist that people should go inside the main transit center building.
So Dan, you say that there's going to be a restroom inside?
Yes.
So people are going to be able to go inside anyway?
People will be able to use the restrooms. But the restrooms would be, there was a discussion on restrooms after, I had to leave early, but Chief White was there, and he stayed, and he told me later that what they're going to try to do the restrooms is kind of like we do in some of our parks, so that there wouldn't really be, they would be locked, but they would have open doors, so you can go in and out freely, so that someone couldn't barricade themselves in there, so that someone couldn't use it as a hideout or anything. So they're talking about doing that, so it's still open to the public, so the public can go ahead and use the restrooms, but it's not actually, it's more like a park restroom than going inside a building and then using a building restroom.
So you wouldn't enter a lobby and then enter a restroom?
No, you'd enter from outside, and it would be open during business hours, so you could go in and out. But they said that if they have the open design, it makes it less likely that someone, I mean, these are the concerns. Is someone going to go in there and do drugs, prostitution? Is someone going to, be drunk and pass out in there? And of course, those things could happen anyway, but to make sure that that doesn't happen, you can have this open design where you kind of walk in one way or the other, and then it's heated, and you can do your business and leave.
Council have any input? Kiki?
Dan, what was Chief White's comment on this outdoor glass enclosure concept?
He wanted to make sure there was glass so that you could see in it. So if the police are driving by, they can see that there's people in there and there's people are safe.
And it's lighted inside?
And it's going to be lighted. They talked about the various materials because, vandalism can happen and stuff. And this was kind of getting into the weeds on the design. And then he also had concerns about the parking lot. It's going to be a pretty hefty sized parking lot there, and he wanted to make sure that that would be something that when the police would drive by, that they could see between the cars, and they could make sure that no one is in trouble by a car or being assaulted or anything. So he had a lot of great input. But he was okay with this as well.
Dan?
Well, I'll give my 2 cents. I think this would be it's better than nothing, but a quite, to my mind, kind of a poor substitute for what I would consider, having some lobby space and an indoor bathroom. And again, this is a transit center, not a transit center. And it just seems like going to kind of extreme amount of effort to, kind of set the folks that are doing this apart. Why not? I've been around a lot of county buildings, and we didn't worry about who's going to go in there and do their drugs or whatever. And, and at the end of the day, guess what? They'll lock the door, so they won't worry about that. So now, when I saw these, I think that would be good out for some of the stops. Like when I go up Ramsey Road going to Winco, and there's a bus stop, and I think of those poor people that, there's nothing protecting them from the big pool of water driving up Ramsey, and behind them is a chain link fence, so they can't even kind of get out of the way of the water spray. So I think that would be good out at some of the stations, but at the main transit center, I guess my 2 cents is I would still like to see just reasonable, indoor bathrooms and a little bit of lobby area. So,
Okay. The one question that the chief asked, Dan, was would the members of the public, the passengers, have any reason to go in the building other than just to sit and wait for the bus? And it's not really a building. The only things that they would really deal with in the public there would be interviews with people who want the paratransit service, who are trying to sign up for that. So they have no place for them to go right now, which is ADA accessible. So they could use that facility now for that. But otherwise, you wouldn't go there to buy tickets, and you wouldn't go there to ask any questions about anything. All that would be handled outside. They would have a kiosk or something where you would get the tickets.
but since it's the main area where they would park, why in the world wouldn't we want them to be able to go in there and wait for their bus? At least one stop out of all of those stops.
So you really want the lobby then?
I do. but
Okay. All right.
I think it's reasonable.
Other council members?
So my question would be on the timing of this. Is this action driven by a timeline?
Yeah, they have the funding and they have to, it's one of those things where there's deadlines that have to be accomplished. So they're moving forward with the design. And they wanted to know, of course, because this is going to cost money, so it means, does that money get allocated toward these outdoor waiting areas? Or does it get allocated more toward the building itself?
And so to follow that up, I think I'd feel more comfortable taking action if we had some comparisons. You know, what does this cost versus Dan's suggestion of, you know, having them in the lobby? And if we could compare all the pros and cons of the options.
Sure.
I think, too, it would be nice to see if there's got to be an example of something that's been done very similar in a similar-sized community. What are they doing? I don't think we need to exactly reinvent the wheel here.
They used an example, and I wasn't able to find pictures of it, but over in Spokane Valley, there's a outdoor waiting area that's similar to this, but it's just not heated. And that's where most people wait in the winter, and they don't seem to have a problem with it. But I was, again, passing along council's desire in this meeting and wanted to get your feedback regarding this so that when I move forward, I have the input and I can explain to the transit people, the architects and the engineers what it is council wants to see. So this is very good feedback. It does help me.
Ron?
Yeah, Dan, you are the representative from the city on this board, aren't you?
And Chief.
What's your feelings on it?
Well, I was kind of delighted to see that there was a way to keep people out of the weather on these outdoor waiting areas. And when they explained that there was really there's really no interaction between the people who would be in the building and the public, because at the minimum, the building just has a break room for the drivers. So it would be a place for the drivers to go in and wait if they had to, or for training or whatever. So the internal configuration of the building doesn't really have any purpose right now to interact with the public. It could be a lobby, there could be offices in there. They honestly don't really know. So I thought, well, if you have the buses pulling up and you have a shelter right there that's heated and someone can sit and wait right there and then get on the bus right away, would probably be better than having them in the building and then walking across the lane to get in the bus. And I thought that would be a little bit more convenient. And again, this kind of posed a solution that I thought was what we wanted. We wanted people out of the weather. So, but I understand what we're saying about the lobby, that's a priority, and I do think the costs are really important, because if these things are so expensive that they don't build a building, then that obviously matters. So this is good input.
And it's a budget-driven project.
Oh, yeah.
So it very well could be, if you design an indoor lobby and the price comes back, that you might have to make adjustments. I would say the number one thing would be to shoot for an indoor lobby if you can.
Okay.
Just my opinion. If it's budget-driven and you can't do it budget-wise, then the second alternative is certainly an improvement, but an indoor waiting area would be good, from my opinion.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that feedback, and to let the public know, so this is moving forward, and that's the desire of your council, is to make sure that people who have to wait at the transit center will be safe and warm and not suffer like they are now. So, thank you.
Can I ask just one question, Dan?
Yeah.
So you have two or a finite number of meetings, again, to bring this information
Yeah, I
back?
believe there's 2 more.
Okay, and so then there'll be a decision made after that, so there may be more information, like Councilmember Evans asked for some comparisons. Some of that may come back to this council
I will-
via your announcement?
Yeah, I will report back if it's something that's just an update, I'll do it at council comments, but in this, I wanted to have a discussion, so I thought
Okay.
making it a discussion item would be good, because then we can talk about it, and if you guys wanted to make a motion and have a decision, then we can do that. So I
Yeah.
thought this would be the most flexible.
And the approval of the final plan comes from the commissioners.
Yes, and the county, but like I said, it was a great process because they were very open and very receptive to everyone. They had engineers from Hayden and Post Falls. They had our chief of police, member of the Post Falls City Council. So there was a lot of good voices, a lot of good input. It was a good meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Thank
Dan.
you.
We'll move on to resolution number 17-074. It's a professional service agreement with HDR Engineering for the preparation of a comprehensive facility plan for the City of Coeur d'Alene Advanced Wastewater Treatment Facility. Jim is here to make
Good
the
evening,
presentation.
Mayor and council members. Bringing before you a proposed professional services agreement. perform a facility plan for our wastewater treatment facility. We went through a RFQ procedure where we received statements of qualifications from from consultants. And our selection committee found HDR Engineering as the top-ranked qualifications. So we have before you a proposed agreement and a scope of services that will basically perform a facility plan, like a long-range plan for our wastewater treatment facility. And I've brought Mike along to put a little horsepower here. And we'd entertain any questions you have.
Questions? All right, if there are no questions, we'd be looking for council action.
We did all that work, and now there's no questions.
Yeah. Okay. So council action?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 17-074, approving professional services agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated for preparation of a comprehensive facility plan for the City of Coeur d'Alene Advanced Wastewater Treatment Facility for a total cost not to exceed $350,000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger,
Yep.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Move on to resolution number 17-075, approval of recreation or for public purposes lease with BLM for approximately the 29-acre corridor. And we have Mike.
Good morning.
Are we going to be here that long?
I'm the
Yeah,
only
just
one who
checking
did
the future.
Should we let everyone know that it's the Bureau
I
of
come
Land
to work,
Management for
so-
those who are acronym challenged?
No, I was going to come up and load this by myself, and Deputy Administrator Taylor stepped in to help. So this is a neat day, because this is another project that's been going on for a long time, and it involves the lease of federal property that the city will lease from BLM, or the United States government, for a period of 20 years. And the property is what has been the BNSF Railroad Corridor from City Park, roughly Garden Avenue, up to Riverstone. And it's shown in yellow in this map here. And it's approximately 29 acres. If you notice in the packet, this started somewhat simply with a two-page application filled out by then Park Director Doug Eastwood, and now it's ended with a rather simple two-page lease that will be signed by the local office of BLM. But it was first signed in 2013, and now we're almost 2018, so 5 years. In between, there are a lot of people that worked on this, Bill Greenwood and the Parks folks, the Ignite Board, Phil Boyd, Welch Comer. If you look at the acknowledgements that are in the exhibit, there are many people that worked on a steering committee for the Four Corners project and for this corridor. So it's been a project that has been community-driven. The property will be used for park and recreation purposes. That's why we get to lease it for zero money, no lease payments. And in the packet, it has the Four Corners plan that is quite comprehensive. That was one of the requirements of the lease. So when the federal government said, okay, we'll lease you the property, but you need to tell us what you're going to do with it. And that's the master plan that has been created and steered by the community and led by Bill and Greenwood and others in the Parks Department. Just for further clarification, this will link the city park area, Fort Grounds area shown here, and continue on through Riverstone, through the Atlas waterfront site that the city's looking at acquiring, and connect to that corridor. So the whole Spokane River corridor will be part of this. So I think it's where this is just, if you will, kind of the first big domino tipping over that we've been waiting to have happen, so that now development or recreation development can occur on this property. So I kind of jumped around there, but if you have any specific questions about this, I'd be glad to answer.
Questions for Mike? No questions. All this work, 5 years,
It's-
no questions.
It's frightening to ask questions because it's so long. I mean, there's like 80 pages here, and I don't want to, open
guess-
a can of
guess-
worms.
Mike, we enter into this agreement, but there's a next step that could be taken, where the ownership actually transfers. That's not a for sure deal, but it's something that the city will be working for. So this will get this agreement in place, but maybe talk a little bit about what would be the next step and the timing of that.
Sure. And that's a good question. This property is being leased to us under a program called a Recreation and Public Purposes Act, and that means it must be used for recreation and public purposes. If the city wanted to acquire that property with no strings and wanted to do something else with it, we would have to get that gifted to us by the federal government, by an act of Congress. And so I should acknowledge the local staff for our elected U.S. representatives, especially Sid Smith and Karen Roeder for Senator Crapo and Senator Risch, have been huge in supporting this and getting it across the goal line to get the lease approved, along with Kurt Pavlet and Jana Peranto at BLM. But the next step that we've talked to them about is approaching Congress to give the property to the city. That would give us more flexibility if there was something in the future we wanted to do. City Park, the 20-acre city park that we know, that was gifted to the city back in 1904, but that would be an example of property gifted to us. So that would be the next step.
Is there an application process? Is that something that we start?
Well, it's simple. All you got to do is get Congress to agree to give it to you.
We have 20 years to do that, apparently.
Yeah. It's got, as we've all seen, things have gotten more complicated. I'm told there is typically a general land bill that will be brought forward to Congress where representatives from around the country will propose projects like this. That used to be something somewhat routine. It's not so much routine anymore. So that is the process, and we can keep talking and talking to our elected officials about bringing something like that forward. But I couldn't give you a timeline or give you any idea how long that would take.
Anything else for Mike? Ron?
Yeah, I move for the adoption of Resolution 17-075.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, just one more point. I'd like to thank Mike for all of his work on this. I was honored to be a part of the steering committee, along with several other people in the audience tonight, and I know Mike has been working hard on this for the last 4+ few more years beyond that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin,
Aye.
English,
Yes?
Edinger,
Yep.
Evans.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
We will move on to the approval of the Arts Commission's recommendation to select Art Piece Core by Jason Sanchez and to prove its location within the new Memorial Park Plaza. Sam?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will load this up really briefly here. It's going. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is consideration of this recommendation from the Arts Commission. Let's find out the best way to do this, so we'll start here. Related to the proposed piece of art known as Core by local artist Jason Sanchez, and a little bit of background and history on this project. As part of the Four Corners Master Plan, which was just kind of discussed a little bit by Mr. Gridley related to the BLM lease, there was a lot of community planning and effort and discussion regarding renovation revitalization around Memorial Park and what used to be Mullen Avenue, which is now Fort Ground Drive. And within that, there are two minor traffic circles and then a larger one at what I would consider the confluence of Fort Ground Drive, Park Drive, and Garden Avenue. Throughout the process, it was intended for artwork to go within those areas, be placed there, be placed within Memorial Park itself. And so the Arts Commission has been working for some time now that the Four Corners Master Plan has been adopted to select pieces of art for recommendation to the council for creation and placement in these areas. During this specific process, some residents of the Fort Grounds neighborhood raised concerns about art being placed within this traffic circle. And so the Arts Commission recommended to basically hold on a piece in that traffic circle at this time and continue with the recommendation of Jason Sanchez's piece Core, but find a new location for it. And so before you this evening is the continued recommendation of the selection of Core by Jason Sanchez, and to place it within actually the new Memorial Park improvements as part of Phase 2, which will be coming online here spring 2018. I wanted to maybe delve into a little bit about how the selection process works, especially because we do have a lot more people now in our community that watch our meetings online and CDA TV. And the way the Arts Commission works is they work under an adopted public art policy, which is adopted by the City Council. It provides them with direction. And they basically work to create subcommittees for various projects. Those subcommittees work on project goals, where art should go, and then they create a selection committee. That selection committee is really the boots on the ground group that works to put out any review of all of the applicants for various public art. So the subcommittee really writes the call to artists. They make the invitation to artists, which staff provides assistance with kind of advertising. We get all that stuff in. The selection committee goes through all of the applicants. They look at all the photos, and then it goes to the selection committee process. As part of that, we also then come up with 3 finalists based on votes of the selection committee, and we send off invitations to finalists to create miniature versions of the art known as maquettes. And we place those in the library, and we ask our citizens to vote at the library on their preferred maquette or the preferred piece. The selection committee doesn't necessarily have to go with the vote, but since I've been here, very commonly, pretty much, they do appreciate that citizen input, and they also recommend what the citizens choose. So as part of this process, we put out a call to artists back in May 2017 for specifically, obviously, the roundabout. We're now talking about a different location. And there was no specific theme for this. That's very common for the call to artists from the Arts Commission. But they do try to kind of give a background or feel for where the piece would be located. They kind of termed this as kind of the convergence point of many of our highlighted areas: City Park, Memorial Field, near the lake, etc., and also the historic neighborhood. And so hopefully the artists would take in that theme or feel and go with it. But they were very specific. There's no theme to this call to artists, allowing for open interpretation and creativity to make a lasting impression on residents and visitors. The Arts Commission does have selection criteria that they must abide by, and that's actually in the arts policy that the City Council adopts. And so they go off the directed council adopted policy. That includes artistic quality, context, media, how it's built, permanence, public safety, diversity, and that's kind of a big one for our Arts Commission. It says the program shall also strive for diversity in style, scale, exploratory types of work, as well as established art forms. Feasibility and duplication. We prefer to not have duplicative art. It's okay for artists who have oftentimes an artist has a feel or theme for their work, but we don't want it to be literally an exact copy. We would like unique pieces of art in our community, and so they look at that. The art policy also gives them quite a bit of latitude on how they determine how they pick art or artists. They can do an open call like they did in this process. They can invite specific artists just to compete, or they can look at a direct purchase of art from artists. And so we've typically always gone with an open call. It's a more robust process. Obviously, we get more applications that way. The selection committee votes, the community votes, and here we are today. For this piece, approximately 75 people voted on the different pieces. 55 of those who voted at the library chose core as their favorite. 10 chose one or the other. So 20 others, split between them, chose the other two. And some of the comments from the community related to this piece include, this artwork is absolutely stunning. Of the three, this is the best. I like the design and the text that will appear on the heart. Perfect, given the location. I like the core for Coeur d'Alene, and I especially like the movement of the water in core. I like this one best for beauty and also around expression of Coeur d'Alene. And finally, the overall concept is very specific to Coeur d'Alene. There's much symbolism pointing to the unique character of Coeur d'Alene and to the larger picture of Idaho. The ribbon-like water is aesthetically pleasing. The bronze heart appears small and perched. They recommended then a larger heart. But basically, as you can see on this piece, and it looks like with two open, it's going to scroll through them, so I'm trying to avoid that. So one moment here, I want to make sure I can only see one at a time. So you can see what the piece looks like here. It is quite large. When this was initially designed by Mr. Sanchez, it was intended, nope, it's going to not let me do it. It was intended to go in that traffic circle, so it could be fairly tall. Now we're talking about it being still tall and wide in Memorial Plaza. Let's see if I can get to here. As you can see, it's kind of a flowing water. The theme is the lake, and then at the top is that heart, kind of core being heart in French. And the intent is to actually have portions of the Idaho State Constitution emblazoned on that heart. Because we're able to move it, or the recommendation is to move it to Memorial Plaza, it allows him to stretch it out a little bit and actually allow people to kind of get inside of it to appreciate it and look at it. Before, it would have been in a traffic circle. We would discourage people from going to it. It's not safe. So this allows the art to be a little bit more activated and in a place that people can actually take their time to view it. The location would be in the new Memorial Park Plaza. As you can see here, it's circled in red. Right now, you get the outline. If you go down there, you can see the makings of the extended parking lot area. There will be the plaza there with the restroom and then the playground. That's in a nutshell kind of what we're looking at today. This project is budgeted at up to $45,000. We do have the funding thanks to our great partnership with Ignite CDA, which provides 2% of their annual funding directly back to the city of Coeur d'Alene for public art. Yeah, so with that, I would stand for any questions. Staff's recommendations approval, as is the Arts Commission's.
Questions for Sam? Dan?
I've already talked, but I want to hear what Kiki has to say.
I only had one thing, and it might be incidental. I know that there's another piece of art, and I think it's called Core, that sits at the Coeur d'Alene Chambers Plaza, front of their building. Is there any conflict with this? It's a piece I think they were trying to brand as their own as far as kind of a place to take iconic photos. So I'm just wondering if there was any discussion about any conflict regarding the title of the piece.
There was no discussion regarding that. Legal counsel, I'm not sure if, is there any copyright concern there with the title?
Can't copyright a title.
I didn't, yeah, I didn't think
No,
so.
yeah, if you took and copied his image and used it, I think you'd have a problem, but just the title would not be a problem.
So we didn't directly discuss that, but that's good input, and
Okay.
we could always reach out to Mr. Sanchez, see if he would like to retitle it, but
I wouldn't suggest that. I just wondered if it was brought up and everyone was comfortable with it, just in order to support the chamber and their effort and what they're doing with theirs. And if this isn't something that's the city's going to try to brand or broadcast the title, it wouldn't seem to be. I just didn't know if there was a conversation about it.
yeah. Typically, so what we typically will do is we will place it on our website. We have a section for public art with a photo of it and location and the name of the artist so folks can see it. And in the future, we also have a wonderful online story map of all of our art in GIS that is very pretty. So you would be able to find it. But we definitely support the chamber's efforts to get people over there for that photo too. We love that.
Thanks.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My neighborhood had an extended discussion on this piece. because it was originally going to be placed into a traffic circle, which I think if you look at the map there, it's just above the K in the word park. And so it was going to go there, and I was okay with it there. But they did mention some interesting things that I kind of latched on to, which is, and this always happens, the public gets involved in something like this, and they have a discussion, and it's way after this kind of input would be truly valuable, which was, why wouldn't this piece of art say something about the fort? If it's in the fort grounds, why wouldn't it be something that would have to do with Fort Sherman that was there, 140 years ago? And I thought that was kind of interesting, and I've latched onto that before with our art here. Because we have in this city what's becoming an art collection. And when you have public art to the degree that we do, which is good and it's healthy, and people like it, eventually you reach the point where it becomes a collection. And that is a higher level of status than a town that may just have a few random pieces of art. And therefore, it becomes crucial that if you're going to have a collection, you should manage a collection, and you should have goals. And so when I was researching this and looking this up, I emailed Sam and I asked him what our art master plan was, and to see what we would say about our public art collection that we have in this city, being the city of excellence and all. And our master plan is woefully out of date. And that's what we learned, because I was like, well, the master plan that's online is 2006, and is there another one that we just didn't put online? And sadly, there isn't. So, given the feedback that we had from my neighborhood, and that discussions that I've had with people, we have a great potential here with public art to talk about ourselves, to say, here's who we are. So we have, by the river, we have a great piece, which is Chief Joseph Antelope, I believe. And Morris Antelope, I'm sorry. Morris Antelope, and that's a fantastic piece of art. It talks about who we are, who's been here before. It tells a history. And there's other art pieces that we have that do tell a bit about our history, which is something I've talked to the mayor about as well. And we have all this potential. And then we have this collection. So I'm thinking, if we want to move forward with art and do art with a purpose to build our collection, is maybe it's time to update the arts master plan. And I'm not, and so this, it's a discussion really outside this one piece, but this opens the door to it, because I look at this piece, and this piece reminds me of a lot of other art around town, which is that it's not ugly, it's pretty, and it is inspiring, and it's well made, and it looks like it's going to be really cool sitting there. But aside from the name and the fact that it has an organ on it that looks like a heart, it's really not, doesn't really say anything. Now, you said mention things about the Constitution or statutes or something that would be on there, and that it would have something to do with the lake. And so that's good, but yet there are other opportunities we can have when we do public art where we can talk about how can we build this collection in a certain direction that would continue to add to the quality of our public art. And I don't know if the rest of council would have any feedback on this or not, but I think this would be a great launching point, since we have all this art that we're doing, and we're going to be doing more art. I mean, the circle, the neighbors do want something in the circle that won't obscure the sight line. And then, of course, they have other issues with the circle, but something that was historical, like they said. And what can we do along those lines? And maybe Amy, because Amy's on the committee, maybe she has some feedback that I'm not aware of.
Well, I'd just like to address your wish for more historical pieces, because I agree with you. And in my 4 years of being on the Arts Commission, I can think of the three pieces. The Chief Morris Antelope, which is, he's amazing. And then our two newer pieces here right in front of McEwen. We have the working man as well as the farmer.
Yes.
Which represent the heritage of the area. So I think we do strike a fair balance. Is it fair enough, historical versus artistic, so to speak, pieces? I don't know, but I know that it is, your desires and your preferences are being heard by the Arts Commission, and they're taking them into consideration. And I think that's been demonstrated by the recent pieces added in the community.
Perfect. But you also see the value of, as we get more and more art, to have a collection, and I would even favor having a curator, having someone who would be appointed or hold a position where they would have knowledge of our entire collection, and they would be able to give feedback not only to council and take input from us as well, but to build a collection in a way that would be even more impressive. Stuff that we don't know. I mean, I don't know a lot about art. I know what I like. And so I can say, oh, that's really cool. Even the Rainbow Bridge kind of grew on me after a while. I like the feathers. But the thing is, having someone do that and view our art what it is a collection. And so we could just kind of go out and get things that look prettier, that maybe fit in the area because it's the right size or something. But then we could also take it that extra level and work on an arts master plan that maybe has some of those things actually encoded to provide more guidance and feedback. So it sounds like, I'm not hearing anything negative about this, but I think that would be a good direction to take it.
Your Honor, if I may really briefly, there is interest from the Arts Commission to update the master plan. Councilmember Gook and I did speak over email today, and I noted that I don't consider it a master plan. It's a 3-page document that I'm not sure how it's termed a master plan, but it is. And I think that there is opportunity to expand that to provide a better vision and strategic priorities for how we define our art and our projects, and then an implementation plan as well, because I think that the Arts Commission could use some guidance on projects moving forward. That could be very helpful. So there's absolutely benefit to that. I think that the Arts Commission is working under a specific policy from the council. It's that does call for diversity, including exploratory works. And so we all have our personal preferences for what we do or don't like in art, as you said, and I love the feathers, obviously, like everybody else, and we have the Playland Pier mural. That's another one that speaks to our historic context as well. But art is subjective, and people do or don't like certain things, and if we remove the diversity of it, I think that could impact what has become part of the identity of the art, in that we have a lot of different styles and types. And so we welcome any input from the council as we work through the master plan process, which we hope to do here soon. We also do have information. Mark Johnstone, who has worked for many years in the art community, brought in some great information from the International Arts Association to help us get started on that. And we'll work to build a new subcommittee to start that process. But it is time. It's from 2006. It was adopted in 2008. It is time to look at that again. But it'll take time as well.
Is that something we need to give direction on? It sounds like you're
I think
pretty,
they're already
pretty in touch
intending
with that.
to do that. They're aware that it's old and it's time to update it, and there's always opportunity to do better and seek out new ways of doing things.
Cool. Sam, maybe, and work with Amy in the first quarter of 18, maybe we can come back and one of those meetings in the Arts Commission where you could talk about updating that master plan and maybe just give a follow-up.
Absolutely.
As to what maybe the plan for 2018 would be. Those master plans take time, and so it's not something that's going to happen just in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So
You
it's-
also get what you pay for. That was $12,000 for 3 pages. So.
Great. Any other questions for Sam?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Arts Commission's recommendation to select Art Piece Core by Jason Sanchez and to approve its location within the new Memorial Park Plaza.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Sam. Now, we will go on to, this is A-4-12, annexation of 1354 Silver Beach Road, owner Scott and Carol Stevens pursuant to the council action on August 7th, 2012. And Tammy has a report for us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So on December 5th, 2017, this item came forward, and it was a request for the approval of the annexation agreement and annexation ordinance for Scott and Carol Stevens. They are the property owners at 1354 Silver Beach Road, and it's a .345 acre parcel located north of Silver Beach Road. This is the subject property outlined here, and the city limits are outlined in the red, and the subject property is almost entirely surrounded by the property located within the city limits that is owned by the Hagedon Hospitality, and it's a limited design PUD. So during that discussion on December 5th, you tabled the item and requested additional background information on this annexation. So I'm here to provide that for you and hopefully answer all of your questions. So in 2012, the applicant requested annexation of the .234 acre parcel. At that time, City Council approved the annexation, and contingent upon that approval, a few items were attached to that annexation agreement. First of all, a shared water agreement was required by the applicant. Proof of road easement was required. And then there were a number of code issues that needed to be resolved with Kootenai County. All three of those items have been resolved, and the applicant has been provided a certificate of occupancy by Kootenai County. All of those items are in your packet. The shared water agreement, proof of road easement has been verified, and then again, the CO. So the other item that you brought forward was some discussion about hooking up to the city sewer. So first of all, I've got the water map. This shows the water main location, and the applicant would not be required to hook up to the water, and the existing water main is located 3,000 linear feet from the subject property. As you can see on the map, this is the subject property, and this is the location of the water main. The next map shows the sewer location, and the nearest public sewer is about 6,000 linear feet away. So this again is the subject property, and this is the nearest public sewer. So the city's wastewater department has followed Panhandle Health District's policy for connecting to wastewater, and it's based on a section of the code that says if the sewer is within 200 feet of the property or becomes available, the property is required to connect. So at this time, the applicant would not be required to connect. An example of another annexation that you recently heard and approved was the Cobalt annexation, and that was on the west side of Ramsey Road, south of Prairie Avenue. And they also did not connect at this time. I believe it's about 500 linear feet away. And should the applicant decide to come forward with a short plat, they would have to extend those lines. So this evening, the request is that you approve the annexation agreement and annexation ordinance for the property owners. And they currently have a sale that's pending, and that they'd like to see it move forward. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Tammy. Questions? Ron?
This has been under discussion for, what, 5 years?
2012 is when we brought it forward, yes. And in 2012, the property owner knew about these items, and I'm not sure what the reason was, but he never came forward with a resolution as far as providing the documentation that we required in order to have the annexation complete. But now he has all of those items complete.
Isn't it about time we settle this matter?
That's entirely up to you.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so Tammy, the water agreement between the two properties, is that binding so that someone else buys the property or either property, the agreement is not going to go away?
That's correct. It is binding. I verified that with Mr. Gridley.
Excellent. And the question about the precedent. So I believe you said that if the water service was, or the sewer service was available within 200 feet of the property, that they would have to connect.
That's correct.
Okay. So that, and again, that was my concern last time was, are we going to be allowing other annexations into the city? And you just pointed out that we did have one.
That's correct.
Where they didn't have to connect because it was too far away. But if they subdivide it, they have to connect.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, we'd be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to approve Resolution 17072, which is approving an annexation agreement with Scott Stevens for 1354 Silver Beach Road.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on that item? Roll call, please.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Ron, was that a 5-year yes?
Thank you.
One more piece of business there, don't we, Dan?
Yeah, we have to move to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 17-1038 once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Renata, if you could read the title, please.
Okay, Council Bill 17-1038, an ordinance annexing to and declaring to be a part of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, a plus or minus .234 acre parcel located at 1354 Silver Beach Road, constituting a portion of Section 20, Township 50 North, Range 3 West, Boise Meridian, as specifically described in Exhibit A hereto. zoning such specifically described property hereby annexed, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, and providing for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and effective date hereof.
Roll call, please.
Eddinger?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes?
Gookin?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion to adopt Council Bill 17-1038.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? One more roll call.
Eddinger?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes?
Gookin?
Aye.
English?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Who says we don't move fast? 2012. Okay, so authorization, we have the authorization of the allocation of $50,000 from the Parks Capital Improvement Fund for the new skate park and accept Ignite CDA funding. Bill Greenwood.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have to say I'm very pleased to be here tonight with you. And I wanted to thank each and every one of you for all the projects we've worked on over the years and our continued collaboration for what the future has to hold. And this is one of those items for the future. So what we have here is we went for a grant that we did not get. And so I went back to Ignite and asked them for some more money. And they were willing to give us $150,000 for our $400,000 skate park. And we are kicking in $50,000 from our Parks Capital Improvement. Parks and Rec Commission feels this is a very valid expense, and this is exactly what that fund has been designed to do. And so with that, I'll take questions.
Questions for Bill?
Well, I
Dan?
would just say, Woody's not here, but I'm sure he would be very appreciative that you guys.
Actually, Woody
had
and
the
I
money.
were in my office when I had my episode.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, so he and I had a long discussion about that for about 30 minutes. So,
Excellent.
yeah, so he was very excited that we're moving forward.
And I'm glad, I wish he was here, because I'm sure he would just be grateful again to have this money and have the skate park. It was one of his concerns, of course. We moved the old skate park, and was it going to come back? It's, one of the fears of government is you take something away, they'll never give it back. You'll have to work twice as hard. You work twice as hard, so thank you so much for
You're welcome. It's
finding the
been,
funds.
they've got that new skate park. We took those smaller elements that we were movable, and we put it over there at the refugee park, and they're having a heck of a time there with that one. So we're looking forward to 18.
So as Woody would say, let's build a bitchin' skate park for the skater kids because they've been waiting long enough.
That's correct.
That's what he would say.
I so move.
Second?
A motion and a second. Further discussion. Kiki, did you have something to add?
It's good to see you here,
It's
Bill.
good to be seen.
And
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to clarify that one of the things I thought that was a hiccup in not getting that grant was the actual signing of the lease piece with the BLN.
Oh, wow.
And so, I'm not sure if that was all true, but I hope that, given what we've approved tonight, that if there's an opportunity to further pursue that grant for improvements to this park in the future, that you keep your eye on that ball. That'd
Yes,
be
in fact, we're hoping that we might have some savings, and so the skate guys and I have been talking about a bowl element. This particular design is what they call plaza style. And so there's a couple of locations at either end where it would fit, where you could come out of the plaza, drop into a bowl. So we might be able to get some work done for this Phase 2 part, and certainly go after some grants in the future. And you're spot on that it may have been a little bit of a glitch, not having that lease in our
timing.
hands.
But thank you for your work on it.
You
It's going to
betcha.
be great.
And I wanted to clarify, we are moving to approve the allocation of $50,000 from the Parks Capital Improvement Fund for the new skate park.
Correct.
And accept the Ignite funding.
And accepting
for
the Ignite
balance.
funding.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Well, I would just acknowledge, out of all of the things that Ignite spends their money on, this is a nice thing that they're doing, so.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, thank you. Now we'll move on to a discussion regarding water-based businesses within Coeur d'Alene. Again, Bill Greenwood, and my understanding is that you've taken this through the Park and Recs Commission, and you just want to bring it forward to council to get a final conclusion on the opinion of
That is absolutely
this.
correct, yes. So what this was, over the years now, we've had several different types of businesses that were wanting to do some offshore water things. We had a hovercraft, we had taxi services, we've had There was the Tarzan, the flotation device that was out there. There were a couple of them, actually. And so we didn't have any sort of ordinance in place about our jurisdiction. And what this does is tightens up our strength in how we're going to allow those operations or not allow those operations. And with that, we had this issue of within 1,000 feet, and so they were outside, the folks that were performing this operation were outside that 1,000-foot distance from our shoreline. Our biggest concern with that business was access to their customers and our customers that are on the beach. The commission felt there was way too much activity already in the area due to our commercial docks, and they were not interested in pursuing water-based businesses at this time.
Okay. Any questions for Bill? Ron, you're on that commission. Maybe talk just a little bit about some of the things that were said.
Well, just like Bill said, that the commission discussed it, and basically, we have a lot of concern about the activities outside the city, and it was the feeling of the commission that, that we shouldn't have anything else, that it should stay as it is. In other words, no.
Okay.
If I might add,
Not sure if I got that.
one of the things that I wanted to bring up was that this does not affect our current operations of our current vendors. And so, for example, the gentleman, Mr. Rodriguez, who has the kayaks, he added paddle boards, for example. That doesn't prohibit those activities with our current vendors, because that was brought up as a question of concern.
Dan?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I would say that I would be in favor of having water business regulations because I think it's going to happen eventually. I think it's going to be something that people will expect. There's a lake. Why isn't there a Tarzan boat? Why isn't there a huge beanbag out there? Whatever. Hover. That was the hover thing that you wear on your feet, right? That makes you
I think
kind
it
of
was
like a rocket
attached to
man.
a jet ski, and there was, yes, correct.
So, but I think it'll be eventually there'll be something out there. And my concern with the Tarzan boat or whatever it was that was Hooligan Island, I guess, or something, it was safety.
That was the commission's concern as well.
We can't really guarantee that something out there that's in the water where we have jurisdiction is going to be safe. I mean, you want to have someone, and I'm sure the parents want to make sure that something's going to be safe out there too, just like they know that when they go to our parks, that the jungle gym equipment won't kill you. So kind of the same thing extended off the shoreline, and I think it's going to be, as this new businesses happen more and more around the country in a lake, it's going to be expected, and it would be nice if we just were able to deal with it, because even though council may say no now and the commission may say no now, I think it's going to come back to us. There's going to be a lot of pressure.
Any other questions for Bill?
I
Kiki?
just wanted to echo that I think Dan's right on that. I think this is something that eventually is going to have to be addressed, and there's just more and more water activities being invented every year, and we live in a place where that's part of what is a huge key to our economy, and especially since we're looking at a new piece of waterfront that the city may acquire, I think that addressing how this is going to be managed might need to happen sooner than later. So I would just encourage some conversations I totally support the Park and Rec, the Commission's concerns and safety being an issue, but I would just suggest that it be looked at sooner than later.
Understood, and that was exactly the problem that we ran into, was the safety part. Mr. Lopper had asked for a safety plan from those individuals, and it was never provided. And in fact, the retort back, our safety plan is going to be calling 911. And so that was the biggest concern. And the fact that the boats were coming up close that were under prop with swimmers around was another concern.
And I want to suggest that we can't create an ordinance to regulate one type of business, but if we have a safety plan for a paddleboard guy, we need a safety plan for a jet elevator guy and a boat rental and a parasailer. We just need to look at the whole what's happening out there on the water and address it sooner than later, because I think that this is just going to come back again, and saying no and just keeping the vendors that we have there now, it limits kind of fairness to anyone new coming in, and it limits the number of activities for, tourists to engage in, and that's kind of something we should pay attention to, so.
Mike, question for you. We currently don't have anything on the books right now. We rarely make a motion. This motion is to not do anything. Do we need to take action to say we're not going to do something?
I think what Bill was looking for was some direction, a consensus of council, and I think that's what you've given to him. So I don't think you can make a motion if you'd like to direct staff to take whatever action, but
So
I guess,
that would-
Bill, I'd turn it to Bill and see what he needs from you.
I'd like no, but that's up to you.
But council, however you would like it, if you'd like to make a motion to say that,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that at this time that we do not have any water-based businesses outside the city limits
Or with inside the city.
or within inside the city limits.
okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey.
Do a roll call, please, Renata.
Okay. Eddinger,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
No.
Gookin,
No.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
You had the power.
Now, we will move on to our public hearing tonight, and this is a legislative hearing. There is a sign-up sheet that is in the back for anyone that wishes to give public comment at the necessary time, and we have the staff report by Sam Taylor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will just get this started here really quick, and I'm apparently doing it the wrong way. I'm usually really good at this stuff. Here we go. I was going to ask the city attorney if you could assist.
Our local PowerPoint expert.
Awkward. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So before you this evening is consideration of adoption of a variety of building codes, and this should go pretty quickly. This really is truly a very routine item for the following reasons. State law requires that we do this. State law requires that we adopt what state tells us to adopt. We are allowed to make local amendments to what they tell us to adopt, but we cannot wholesale ignore what the state wants us to adopt. That's pretty simple. So before you, we're requesting council to approve the adoption of the 2015 International Building Code, the 2015 International Existing Building Code, 2015 International Energy Conservation Code with 2012 amendments for the residential portion. So the 2015 is related to commercial, and the 2017 Idaho State Plumbing Code. The Idaho Division of Building Safety provided a list to jurisdictions to let us know that we need to adopt all of those by January 1st, 2018, pursuant to Idaho Code Section 39-4116, subsection 2. The other reason why we're doing this is that to ensure that we provide clarity and consistency with other jurisdictions. We're very proud that our staff has worked in collaboration, especially with the city of Post Falls, to ensure that what we're adopting and even our local amendments are very consistent with one another. So if you work in these professions, if you're a builder or in this business, you're an architect, a designer, et cetera, you can go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and be confident that what you're dealing with is the same thing. That's also the reason why the state requires local jurisdictions to adopt what they ask us to. They, in essence, preempt us on this. They want to provide consistency for these trades throughout the state. As outlined, we would be adopting these various codes. And then we're proposing recodification of the 2012 International Residential Code, the International Fuel Gas Code, and the International Mechanical Code. We're recodifying those simply because we want to make sure it's clear that we still utilize these codes and they remain in use. And then specifically our local amendments. What they do is focus on addressing snow loads, enhanced fire protection, providing clarity for developers. So there's one specific section where the rules don't change related to concrete foundations, but we rewrote it to hopefully make it clear for them. So the rules do not change at all. It's simply basically a language cleanup. And then finally ensuring that state licensed professionals are part of the design process for these projects. To be clear, to reiterate it, no amendments are any different from previous code adoptions. So everything that you're seeing tonight is, one, acknowledging what the state would like us to adopt, and two, any local amendments are what we've already had before. We may have had to change the section of a local amendment because the new code changed the number within it as well. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Questions for Sam? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sam, you said we can't ignore what the state wants us to adopt. What does the state want us to adopt?
The state wants us to adopt the 2015 IBC, the 2015 International Energy Conservation Code, the 2015 International Existing Building Code, and the 2017 Idaho State Plumbing Code. And so that is what we are doing this evening.
My emphasis on that was we can't ignore. So what happens if we ignore it?
That's a fantastic question. There's potential that we could lose our ability to potentially provide permits to people to do business in our community until we appropriately adopt, or we could see lawsuits from
Seems
people.
like if the state says it, is there a state hammer that comes down?
I believe the hammer is that they might restrict our ability to permit.
Yes, I think that's correct. The Attorney General could, I suppose, his office seek an injunction to enforce the state law.
And someone told me there was something that was happening in Boise. I don't know if it was Boise City or Boise County, but what was the thing that was going on there?
The city of Boise, so to be clear, just back up and reiterate, the state building code board and then the legislature said that we can adopt the 2015 International Building Code, but we need to keep the 2012 International Residential Code. That's what we're doing. The city of Boise was seeking to adopt the 2015 International Residential Code, which would go above and beyond what the state said we can adopt. And for that reason, a state lawmaker in the Boise area requested an AG's opinion on that, and the Attorney General's office said that they should not be doing that, that state law requires that they adopt what is adopted by the State Building Code Board, that local amendments can be made to the codes, but we cannot just wholesale ignore what's been adopted by the state.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions for Sam? So if there aren't any other questions, at this time, I'd like to open up public comment. I have a list here. The gentleman that's named those on the list is no longer here. Anyone in the audience wish to give public testimony? Seeing no one that wishes to give public testimony, I'll close the public testimony part of this and look for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that, well, I'm going to move in favor of adopting it, but the way we have to do this is we have to dispense with a rule first, so we'll do that first. So I'll move to dispense with a rule and read the Council Bill 17-1039 once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Renata, if you would read the title, please.
Sorry, I have to back up here a bit. Okay. Council Bill Number 17-1039, an ordinance amending Sections 15.08.055 and 15.12.010 of the Municipal Code of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, to account for the recent adoption, with amendments and revisions, of updated versions of the uniform codes by the State of Idaho, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for the publication of a summary of the ordinance, and providing for an effective date thereof.
Mr. Mayor, point of clarification, you meant amending sections 1508.005.
Yes, thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, roll call, please.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Motion carried.
Motion to adopt Council Bill 171039.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's been a lot of press about the county deciding that they were not going to adopt the code that we're about to adopt, and something about private property rights. But to me, if you read the paper, there was a My Turn column over the weekend by Deborah Rose, and she really distilled well why we have building codes. And I don't have a copy of that, so I can't repeat what she said. She did it really well. But one of the things I like to point out is building codes are part of public safety, and we're all about public safety. One of the reasons our fire guys will run into a building that's on fire, or to look for people to save their lives, is because they know that the buildings in Coeur d'Alene have been inspected, and that they can go in there safely and do their job without fear of something collapsing on them. And also, you can buy property in Coeur d'Alene and know that when you buy a home or you buy a commercial business, that it's been inspected and that you are getting what you're paying for. You're not going to have a surprise somewhere, because we take it seriously. And I think this is all part of that package. There are people who will argue that this infringes upon their private property rights and that they should be able to do whatever they damn well want to with their property. Property rights, like all other rights, are not absolute. And I think we do need to protect our first responders, we need to protect home buyers, and the citizens of Coeur d'Alene who expect us to be city of excellence, and that's why I favor adopting our building code.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yes.
Motion carried. And the next piece of business?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. We'll see you next year, except for Jim, we'll see him around sometime.
See you in the bars.
We're adjourned.